So now we're going to look at this thing. Use the graph to solve the equation below. So we have our graph. It's x squared minus 1. We already know that that's going to be a regular parabola just dropped down by 1. The equation x squared minus 1 equals 0 really just means I want to find the x values where the function x squared minus 1 has the value of 0. Okay, so if I set that equal to 0, I'm sorry, you're right. I want to solve x squared minus 1 equals 0. The function x squared minus 1 looks like this parabola. If I set that equal to 0, basically I'm saying y is equal to 0. Basically I want to figure out where y equals 0. Essentially what this question is asking me is what are the x-intercepts? In this case you can see from the graph the x-intercepts is positive 1 and negative 1. We usually write this as plus and minus 1. So that your solution works by substituting the x values into the equation. Oh, that's pretty simple. What is, if f of x equals x squared minus 1, what is f of positive 1? Okay, well that's 1 squared minus 1, which is also known as 1 minus 1, which is also known as 0. I could also see what is f of negative 1. Well, that's negative 1 squared minus 1, which is also known as 1 minus 1, which is also known as 0. So the 1 and negative 1 make these values to be true. For what values of x is it bigger than 0? Basically, when is this parabola positive? It's in this region right here and this region right here. So if you tell me, you're asking me what x values give me a positive y value, well I would say, okay, well any number between negative infinity and negative 1, and I'm using interval notation here, 1 all the way through infinity. All the x values that are between negative infinity and negative 1, and all the x values that are between 1 and infinity. For what values of x is x squared minus 1 less than 0? Basically it's asking when is this parabola negative? Well, that would be x values that are between negative 1 and positive 1. If I plug in a number that is in between negative 1 and positive 1, I'll be in this region right here, which would give me a negative y value. Alright, let's do this one over here. Do I really want to do all of them for you? No, that one's pretty straightforward. Alright, here we go. Use the graph below to solve this thing. X squared plus 2 or plus 3 equals 2. Okay. We don't necessarily know how to do x squared plus 3 equals 2, but we could graph this. X squared, alright, equals 2. I can put it over to the left hand side, so I'm going to move that 2 over. So I have x squared plus 1 equals 0. So now the question is asking, so I know how to graph this. That's just simply a regular parabola moved up by a value of 1. But it's asking me when does x squared plus 1 equal to 0? When does this parabola have a y value of 0? And my answer is it never hits 0. Never hits. So I guess I would say no solution, or NA, which stands for not applicable, or you're crazy. I guess the way you would say it is you're cray cray. That's the way you guys would say it. And the way you would explain that is you say, well, dude, this parabola doesn't even cross x equals 0. So why are you asking me to find where it crosses x equals 0? You punk. Anyway, have a nice day.